Welcome to the Badger Den. Apologize for my disheveled appearance. Things are just a little nuts right now. First off, this goes back to I believe I was one of the first people to cite this. I believe that the big attack on Iran is regime change, and more information is coming out that seems to indicate that more pundits, political strategists are beginning to see this as well. So Trump left the G7 in a rush yesterday, citing that he had something big he had to get to. And the conversation is all around Tehran. So let's see exactly what happened. Trump had an early departure from the G7 summit in Canada due to a matter much bigger than a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. What could be bigger than a ceasefire? Because he does not just want a ceasefire, he wants them to stop. Trump told reporters he wanted a genuine end to Iran's nuclear program. Iran's nuclear program is tied to their entire ethos. They want that weapon. They want that ability. They want that show of power. How do you change that when the regime itself wants it? I'm not looking for a ceasefire. We're looking at a better than a ceasefire. Aboard Air Force One, noting that his goal is for Iran to give up its nuclear ambitions entirely. How do you get a regime to give up its nuclear ambitions? I wonder. In a subsequent post, Trump clarified that he had not contacted the Iranian government to engage in any form of peace talks. Again, Iran has been contacting him. He's kind of, I guess, given them the cold shoulder. Said, told you, should have made the deal. Here we go. Iran should have signed the deal I told them to sign. What a shame and a waste of human life. Simply stated, Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. I said it over and over again. Everyone should immediately evacuate Tehran. When he tweeted this out, this is what we got. A flood of traffic jam in Tehran where people are trying to get out. Look at that. All these are lines trying to get out of Tehran. You've got one line coming in. Everybody else is just get the F out. Also noted, there is now a collision of two oil tankers in the Strait of Hormuz. Specifically, a Russian tanker, or a tanker that is hiding as a Russian tanker, and a Liberian tanker. Specifically, this is due to GPS jamming. It's theorized this is probably the U.S. or Israel that is jamming and causing these issues. Because again, the tankers that come out of here generally impact India, China, and Japan. And in a wonderful citing of previously you had to worry about if your doctor was black or your pilot was black or a woman, now you got to worry if they're Hispanic as well. This is totally true, and I can attest this from personal experience. Tennessee now sues the U.S. Department of Education over Hispanic student funding. What has been found out, and I've wondered about this for many years now. I knew a Hispanic who got here on the DACA program who could not get into a top-level graduate university because he could not pass the GMAT and get enough high enough score. He couldn't do it. So they waived the GMAT requirement for him. He got in without having to take the GMAT test because they knew he was too dumb to actually do well enough to get in. Guess what? They got him in, so he is now practicing in a certain field without the requisite requirements to do so because they wanted this money. The District of Tennessee claims that a program providing federal money to colleges and universities if Hispanic students make up at least 25% of the student body. Crazy. Sounds a little racist. U.S. Supreme Court in 2023 to strike down the use of racial criteria in student admissions at the institutions of higher learning in a case called Students for Fair Admissions versus Harvard. This goes back to where Harvard was specifically changing or allowing people who are black or Hispanic to get in with much lower scores than people who are white and Asian. Asians were the most radically profiled in this to where they had to score much higher than any of their peers. Whites had to score much higher than any of their peers. So again, if you see a whitey or an Asian out there, you know that they've done very well because they had to do very well because they were negatively penalized. And when this went before the Supreme Court was like, yeah, that's pretty racial. You can't have people, we need to have equity. We need to have equality. We need to have fairness. But the left isn't about fairness, are they? No, they're not. Leftists are radically racist. And even when this got passed by the Supreme Court was like, yes, this is racist. The Biden administration came out and was like, wait, hold on. We can get around this. So the Biden administration actually worked with colleges like Harvard, like Yale, to determine a way around this ruling. So instead of going at the heart of the matter and be like, yeah, this is racist, we should stop it, the Biden and Democrats and leftists were like, no, we want to continue to be racist. The Hispanic Serving Institution Grant program is unconstitutional and discriminates based on race, ethnicity, according to the complaint. Right now, they're offering up $1/3 billion per year. When you incentivize something, you're going to get it, and you're going to get institutions that radically change their requirements to allow Hispanics in that have no business being there, that did not have the educational requirements or the acumen to be able to be in those institutions, but they want that money. The program engages in unconstitutional racial balancing and operates outside the constitutional authority of Congress. The 25% minimum Hispanic enrollment provision functions as a strict racial gatekeeper. Yup. Even before its ruling in Students for Fair Admissions v. Harvard College, the Supreme Court held that racial balancing policies must be weighed under strict scrutiny standard, which means they must advance a compelling governmental interest and be narrowly tailored. In other words, you can't do a carte blanche like this. You have to have a legit reason. There's no legit reason to say, hey, Hispanic, who's illegal here, we're going to give you a special carve out and allow you to get ahead of all your white and Asian counterparts. And frankly, black, because this is just for Hispanics. They hate you. They really do. And they want to replace you. And this is the point. The DOJ gets sued over a law blocking immigration arrests at courthouses in New York. Surprise, surprise. Lawless sanctuary city policies are the root cause of violence that Americans have seen in California. New York State is similarly employing a sanctuary city policies to prevent illegal aliens from apprehension, from Attorney General Pam Bondi. True. Sanctuary jurisdictions across the country thwarted federal authority. Yeah, if you're not going to follow federal immigration laws, you're skirting the laws and violating them. Under this recent lawsuit, the Protect Our Courts Act and 2 executive orders from former Governor Andrew Cuomo orders block information sharing with immigration enforcement, and the Protect Our Courts Act blocks civil immigration arrests for immigrants either attending or in transit to or from a New York court proceeding. Yeah, it's a pretty nice way to pick up people when you know they're illegal, they're coming to a specific spot. You can be like, hey, why don't you just hop into the van? We'll take you home. Governor Hochul, maintained that the state assisted ICE on criminal matters only and didn't shield illegal immigrants. No, this is legit shielding. This is the problem with the left. They really have no principles. They cannot stand on principle. You give them a principle, or they claim to have principles, you actually examine it. They throw that principle out the window the moment it suits them. Hochul has requested that federal judge in New York dismiss the Justice Department's earlier lawsuit targeting the state's DMV policy, otherwise known as the Green Light Law. So again, they're giving licenses to illegals. That law prohibits the DMV from sharing personal information with immigration authorities, except as required by law, the state said in March filing. If they have a license, and you go to vote in a federal election, and they validate they have a license, how do you know they're not a citizen? Bueller? You don't, and that's the point. Illegals are voting in our elections, and they want this. They want to vote in the elections illegally. The blue states want them to vote in our elections illegally. Leftists, get out. You don't love America. Liberals, if you're still a liberal and you still have a soul, you really need to stop voting for these policies. The state argued that the law was a valid exercise of the state's traditional police powers. So we're going to circumvent federal law because we feel like it. They do not care about states' rights. That's hilarious. A leftist, liberal Democrat cares about state rights. No, they want federal top-down authority. Everybody must do as I say. And I told you, your vote doesn't count. Federal judge blocks Trump's executive order on elections. I wonder why. Let's look at what they blocked. Federal district judge on Friday blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to overhaul the U.S. federal elections, siding with a group of Democratic state attorney generals who said the order violated the Constitution. There is no dispute, nor could there be, that a U.S. citizenship is required to vote. Oh, look, it's required to vote to be a U.S. citizen in federal elections, and the federal voter registration forms require attestation of citizenship, Casper said in the order, adding that the issue is whether the president can mandate a documentary proof of citizenship where the authority for election requirements is in the hands of Congress. Did you catch that aerobatical leap? The president is doing something that we already should be doing. Right, so he made an executive order that said we should be following the Constitution. Yeah, but we want Congress to say it. Okay, but so that means you're not going to follow it unless Congress tells you that you should be following the Constitution that you should have been following anyway. Well, right, but since Congress hadn't said we need to follow the Constitution, we're not going to follow the Constitution. Congress says that we're going to follow the Constitution. Yeah, your vote doesn't count. Statutes on elections do not require it, and the statutorily elected Election Assistance Commission is required to go through a notice and comment period and consult with the states for implementing any change to the federal forms of voter registration. So the judge just, again, doing barrel rolls to get around the fact that the U.S. Constitution states that you have to be a U.S. citizen and saying, well, Trump didn't go through these hoops. And not only did he not go through these hoops, we actually have Congress go through these hoops. So, I mean, technically Trump's right, but we want the specific red tape stuff to go through first. And that's all we really care about. We really care about the Constitution, but we want you to go through these hoops. That's all it is. No, your vote doesn't count. You are being replaced. The president's March 25th executive order sought to compel officials to require documentary proof of citizenship for everyone registering to vote. You mean you don't just want them to have a New York state-issued DMV license because they might be illegal? In federal elections, except only mailed ballots received by Election Day, you mean not 2 weeks after Election Day, and conditioned the federal election grant funding on states adhering to the new ballot deadline. Sounds pretty good. The right of American citizens to have their votes properly counted and tabulated without illegal dilution is vital to determining the rightful winner of election. Pretty straightforward. Because again, illegals are voting. They're going to continue to vote. They're going to be voting in blue states because they do not want our votes to count. Blackies, you've been replaced. Whiteys, you're on the way out. Look, a leftist now learned what a woman is for a moment. So Simone Biles, I called her out in the last, 2020, I believe it was 2020, or it's 2026 or 2020 that she was a woke leftist. My family said, no. She just had a hard time. She couldn't go. She was in a lot of stress. No, and this proves it. She's a leftist. So this all started when Riley Gaines pointed out that some softball team had a boy on it, and this boy was like a full foot taller than all the girls, and they happened to dominate and win the championship. And that's not fair. You cannot cheat and have a boy playing on a girl's team. That is completely destroying the whole aspect of fair competition. Well, Riley Gaines calls this out because she knows what it's like to compete against a man. And Simone Biles stated that you're truly sick, Riley Gaines. All this campaigning because you lost a race. Lost a race? Bitch, she was stolen. That win was stolen from her and she had her nose rubbed in it. You're straight up a sore loser. You should be uplifting the trans community and perhaps finding a way to make sports inclusive or creating a new avenue where trans feel safe in sports. Maybe a transgender, I think sports. No, that's not her responsibility. Her responsibility is making sure that the sports that she participates in and other women participate in are fair, just like men should be doing. But Simone Biles just doesn't get it. And it went on. So Simone Biles then went on to tell Riley to bully someone her own size, which would ironically be a male. Simone Biles doesn't understand that she's the size of a chipmunk, and that average women are average women height, and that men are much bigger than Riley Gaines. So this chipmunk just basically bullies somebody who's trying to shield women from the crazy left who want to destroy women's sports and women's spaces. Riley Gaines goes on to point out that Simone Biles is being a male apologist at the expense of young girls' dreams, because it's just disgusting. Once she got her win and she's out, she now wants to hold up men to compete in women's sports. And what's hilarious is back in 2017, she stated, Simone Biles, it's a good thing that guys don't compete against girls or he'll take all the gold medals. Some other gymnastic that was doing fantastic on like the pommel horse. And that was back in 2017. So again, the hypocrisy of the left knows no bounds. Simone Biles, after went and did an apology stating she shouldn't have targeted Riley Gaines like she said. After she made that apology, guess who eviscerated her? The left. Because again, she broke from the herd mentality. You people on the left are sick. Just want to note something on today's thumbnail. If you go back, check the thumbnail. It's funny that the AI allows you to put Trump's face in anything you want, but for some reason, when it's Islamic head of state, they really don't like that. I had to really contort and play with the AI and mess with the AI to get what I wanted. They really are disgusting. If you're Christian or American or white, you can contort and do whatever you want. If you're a brown person or you're part of the Muslim religion, you get special protections. Fairness is just wonderful. This is what you Democrats are all about, is fake fairness, fake justice, and just full-on racism. Well, this is Mouthy signing off. Later, guys.